Well, over the last few days, Iran has seen widespread protests. Women appear to be at the forefront of the demonstrations, burning headscarves in a protest that was sparked by the death in custody of a woman who was detained by the morality police for breaking laws around wearing a hijab. Jeenah from the Afro-Middle East Center joins us now. Naeem, good evening to you and thank you for your time. Women have had to wear headscarves or hijabs in Iran, I think, since 1979. We have seen situations where what's often translated as the morality police have been accused of abusing people. Why are these protests suddenly so intense this time around?
Well, a couple of things, Stephen. One is that, in Iran, an issue like this is not just about an issue like this. There are a number of grievances, and so the protests over the past almost a week are being portrayed as a protest for greater freedoms, not just about the headscarf. But Iran also, over the past many years actually, is in the doldrums economically. Its currency is very weak. The sanctions have had a very strong effect. And so people are quite unhappy with the economic situation that's going on. So, there are protests taking place all the time in Iran, but you have one kind of cause that blows it up into a kind of national event. The other thing around the headscarf issue is that until last year, when Ibrahim Raisi was elected president, there was allowed to be a kind of relaxation of the implementation of the law. So the law still existed about headscarves being compulsory for women, but it wasn't implemented in the same kind of way, and you'd find women walking the streets with headscarves covering half their head or less than half their head, sometimes just around their neck, and no one would bother too much. But since Raisi came in last year, he's ensured that this was implemented much more strongly. So when people have the kind of a sense of freedom, even if it's still on the law books, and then it gets taken away, I think that it's a big thing.
So in a way, is this not, this would be a protest about many things. Is it a protest against the government or perhaps the religious authorities specifically? It's hard to, the two aren't as different as they are in our system in South Africa. But is it against one specific institution in Iran, or not really?
Well, yeah, as you say, the government and the religious authorities, it's difficult to separate them because Iran effectively is kind of run, the most senior politician is a religious figure. And now the president is as well. That doesn't always have to be, but currently he is. So it's in a sense about the government, but it's also about the way that the government implements what it regards as religious laws. So it's a mixture of those things. Yeah.
Do you foresee change in Iran around this, or do you think that there'll be the protests will just run out, or do you think there'll be some other response from the authorities? What I'm trying to get to is, does this sort of threaten the status quo in Iran in any way?
No, it doesn't. I don't believe that it does. Look, as I said earlier, protests take place in Iran every single day, usually on local issues, much like in South Africa. And they don't get reported. They get reported when they become national, as this one has, or the fuel subsidy protests in 2019 were. But they don't threaten the status quo. This is not a revolutionary moment. It's an uprising, it's protests. I believe that it'll probably continue into the weekend, maybe into next week, but it will be quelled. 7 people have been killed already in the protests, and it doesn't seriously threaten the status quo. Also, Raisi on Sunday, so 2 days or a day after the protest started, announced that he was going to set up some kind of an inquiry into what actually happened. So, if there's an inquiry that works over the period of a few days, comes up with a conclusion that finds that the police did something wrong and they are taken to task for it, the protest will fizzle out quite quickly.
Jeenah, thanks very much indeed, Executive Director at the Afro-Middle East Center. Really do appreciate that explanation.